questions were so fun.
Really? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we have a very special guest by the name of Indyah. I'm super excited to be here. You're very much welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so today we're going to be talking about the looking glass theory, and I have a couple of questions for Indyah, and I think it's really going to be insightful, so stay tuned to the end. And so the first question I have for you today is, why did you decide to major in psychology?
Yeah, so throughout most of my adolescence, I was struggling with depression, and I found that I felt like no one understood me, and that made it 1,000 times harder. It's like, how is everyone else doing these things and going through life with no struggles, and it seems like I'm the only one that's struggling with this. And when I finally got into therapy, she gave me some information about cognitive distortions, which is how we distort reality in our mind.
Yeah.
And I realized that when I was made aware of that and I was able to identify those things, I was able to change my thought process. And I was like, everybody needs to be made aware of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I had a passion for finding out why people behaved the way they did, why they thought the way that they did, and making them aware of that knowledge for themselves so that hopefully they could find the same relief, and so that no one feels like they're not understood.
Thank you very much for sharing that, and it also makes me remember why I decided to major in psychology and why I'm actually pursuing a career like in psychology, because I grew up in Cameroon, and in Cameroon, like, mental health is something that is not really spoken about. Like, if you're depressed, they're just like, get over it, just get over your feelings.
Yes.
Like, you're just sad, like, tomorrow you'll be fine. Like, it's really on the mind, and I think it's a very important issue, and it's really prevalent amongst youths in Cameroon, and so I feel like I have to be the change Cameroon needs. So yeah, that's why I'm pursuing a career in psychology. And so let's get on to our second question I have for you is, what is the looking glass theory?
Okay, so basically the looking glass theory describes how others' perceptions of us kind of shape our own self-image. And so, for example, if I feel like people perceive me one way, I'm gonna take that to be how I look at myself, and it'll form my identity.
So how do you think that affects the behaviors of minority groups here in the United States?
Yeah, so even though I haven't researched this specifically, one thing that comes to mind is something that I'm familiar with, the concept of learned helplessness. And so you'll see a lot in low-income neighborhoods, or even just with racial minorities, that you can't really envision yourself somewhere else. You know, that has to do with representation, that has to do with what you feel like society's perceptions of you are. For example, if I wanted to be a CEO of a company, but I feel like society only sees white men as CEOs of companies, then I'm not gonna picture myself as the CEO of a company, and that's gonna affect my own self-image of that. So learned helplessness is where people who are in low income areas kind of get stuck in cyclical poverty, and they feel like the only thing they can amount to is, you know, what the generations before them did, which is maybe running a local family business or just kind of trying to make it by. But you'll see that the people who get out of those situations are people who have mentors, or people who are surrounded by people who pull them out of it. They'll give them resources, they'll tell them that they can do more than that, and they'll see something in them that they didn't see in themselves.
Yeah.
And then they begin to take that in, and that becomes their self-image. And so
Wow.
it's very inspiring.
Thank you. Like, I really enjoyed how much you shared and how in depth you went into. Even though you didn't do research, like, I really appreciated your answer, and I feel like a lot of our viewers will be able to relate to that. And I have another, like, a follow-up question. Apart from like seeing it with other minority groups, how has the looking glass theory influenced you in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, so definitely it comes with representation. When I see people like me in fields that I want to be in, for example, how, you know, there's a growing population of Black therapists, and there's a growing population of Black scientists. Seeing those sorts of things inspire me to go after that, and it allows me to see myself in that position. And it's also made me very resilient in just not seeing myself in some of those positions. You know, being able to know how I'm affected by that, and being able to overcome that, and kind of being the first to do certain things in my families.
like that's the reason why I'm actually creating this YouTube channel, so that I get like voices like hers, so that when you listen to it, you can like, you don't have to be defined by what your family thinks that is your limit. How do I put this? Like, you can do more than what society has labeled you to be able to do. So yeah, thank you very much, Indyah, for sharing that. Like, you're killing it. Like, I'm really enjoying this. Like, I really like how into depth you're going into all the questions I'm asking. And then I think our final question for today is, what are some ways in which someone could use the principles of this theory to their advantage?
Yeah, so I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is social media, right? Because we're now able to shape our identity on social media and showing parts of ourselves that, you know, we want to show. And sure, that can be damaging, but it can also build us up and build our own. We can be confident that anything we want to do, we can present ourselves that way and in turn see ourselves in that way. And I feel like social media gives us the perfect opportunity to do that.
No, thank you. So all these people using Instagram are just trying to copy everybody, try to be authentic self. As Instagram creators say, like, being your authentic self is how you get viral. So you could try it out. And so my last final question for today is, what is your call to action?
My call to action. Yeah, so I definitely want everyone to know that even though we talked about this looking glass theory, a disclaimer is a lot of times we think people are perceiving us a certain way when they're not. So sure, we might base our own self-image off of the perceptions of others, but oftentimes we misjudge those perceptions. So like Bemsi said, just be authentic to yourself, because you never know what people are thinking of you, so stay grounded in your true identity.
Yeah. Thank you very much for being with us today, Indyah, and it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you.